Welcome to the Purple Positivity Podcast for July the 13th, 2018. Ooh, Friday the 13th. I am your host, the amazingly adorkable, and not really as superstitious as you might think, Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my new used desk in my apartment, which I call Jeffrey Thistlework. Yes. So, I was talking to All Caps someone last night, and, he asked me, he's like, so what are you gonna do tonight? We got on the phone around about, 7:30 or 7:45 or something. He said, so what are your plans for the rest of the night? And I was like, well, I gotta work tomorrow. So, obviously, I'm going to get to bed fairly early, so here in the next hour or so, I'm going to do what I always do, which is bounce around between playing ukulele, watching shit on Netflix, and thinking about what I'm going to talk about on my Positivity podcast. And he made this remark to me. He says, you always stress about what you're going to talk about on your podcast, but you always figure it out. And I said, yeah. So I said, but I wouldn't really call it stress. I obsess about it to a certain degree, and it's actually kind of a good thing because, since I do this show Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that means that I spend 24 to 48 hours, if not more, looking around at life, the universe, and everything, and things going on around me, and trying to see if there's a way that I can take a life lesson from that. Take something shitty and turn it around and say, well, look, this is how you turn it into fertilizer and grow, sort of thing. And he goes, yeah, so it it's not like I never get down. It's not like I never get depressed. Of course I do. Every once in a while I go, no, not having this shit. But, doing this podcast and constantly thinking about, well, what am I going to talk about on the next one? What am I going to talk about on the next one is what keeps me from completely going back to being either passively or actively suicidal, because I'm always having to look for something good to talk about on this show. Something that will not only uplift my spirits and change my perspective, but hopefully help someone else lift their spirits and change their perspective. So, I'll have someone went, fair enough. So what are you going to talk about on your show on Friday? And I went, chicken! And he went, what? So, if you're a regular listener of this show, God help you. But you know that here lately I've been listening to a lot of Christopher Titus. And I really like the way he expresses his perception of life. So, on work, I think it was Wednesday, or maybe it was Tuesday. In any event, one of these days at work, I listened to his album, Angry Pursuit of Happiness. And see, if I were a professional podcaster, an audio editing wizard, and if this were professional podcast, I'd have the audio ready to go and just play it and let his words resonate with you, because he does it so much better. But I'm not, this isn't, and I don't. So I'm gonna try and summarize this as best I can. I'm totally paraphrasing with minor bits of quotes here and there. So in Angry Pursuit of Happiness, he talks about, at one point in the show, he talks about how humans are constantly worrying about what's going to kill them. Dogs, their whole life happens right in front of their face. Like, it's just right there. This moment is what we have. So, like, you put chicken in front of a dog and they just go, chicken! Oh my god, there's chicken. There will always be chicken. Chicken is, this is great. This is great. And they just appreciate having chicken. You take the chicken away, you put a ball in front of them, and they're like, ball! And they love the ball, and they, play. And then you take the ball away, and they're like, suck! And everything in their life happens in that moment. Whereas, put chicken in front of a human, and they go, oh, I hope they cook this all the way through because I don't want to get salmonella. Man, well, my insurance... What happens when you get salmonella? Like, is it coming out both ends? Am I supposed to drive myself to the hospital if it's coming out of both ends? There's nobody else who can do it. Does my insurance cover an ambulance ride? Oh my god, I don't know how I'm going to keep affording my insurance. You start worrying, and the next thing you know, like, the person that you're having dinner with goes, dude, are you gonna eat your chicken? Oh, I forgot I had chicken. And that's so true. We start worrying so much as human beings about what could go wrong that we forget to enjoy what is going right. We're so worried about how the chicken could go wrong that we forget to enjoy the chicken in the moment. And so later on in the show, this is one of the reasons I love Christopher Titus. Later on in the show, he's very realistic, and he's like, look, life goes well, but then it goes to hell. That's not really what he says, but that's the gist of what he's saying. Life goes well, and then it goes to shit. You're gonna get a lot of good stuff in your life, but it's never going to be enough, and somehow that's going to lead to you fucking shit up for yourself as time goes on. And so at some point later in this show, he says, next time things in your life are going well, stop, just take a minute and go, chicken! And I like that. I'm not the best when it comes to living in the moment. I'm not. Usually the best I can do is when somebody asks me, how are you today? I can say, well, they're not shoveling dirt on my body, so it's a pretty damn good day, But even in making that really funny remark, there's that fear in the back of my head, as with most, if not all, humans. Holy shit, one day I'm gonna die. I even started this show talking about how I spend so much time worrying about what I'm going to talk about on the show. Not really worrying about it per se. I think about it a lot. I'm thinking about the next show. Like, when I wrap this show up and I post it, I guarantee you that the rest of this day, and then most of tomorrow, and most of Sunday, I'm going to be sitting there thinking, what am I going to talk about on the Purple Positivity podcast on Monday? And usually I don't actually 100% know what I'm going to talk about until I say, podcasting to you live-ish from my new used desk in my apartment, which I call Jeffrey Thistlework. Usually I don't know until then. I have like a list of ideas in my head of things that I've noticed, but I don't 100% know what I'm going to talk about until I start the show. And even then, I might start talking about something and I go, oh, no, I don't want to talk about that. And I'll stop the show and delete that draft and start again. But So, getting back to my point about living in the moment is I'm not always good about living in the moment and appreciating what's there in front of me. You know? And that's why I miss having a dog. My dog Zelda Mimi died on January 31st of this year. My dog Kaylin died back in 2016. And I'll tell you what, there is nothing that grounds you in the moment more than having a dog. Really, because they seriously are just like, it is this moment, and this moment is the only thing we have. On my Lit Nerd podcast, I've been talking about the Iron Druid Chronicles, and one of the biggest things that I love about the Iron Druid Chronicles is the character of Oberon, who is an Irish wolfhound, and he is so good about being in the moment. He has like no perception of time because he's a dog. You know how dogs are, hopefully. Like 5 minutes could be an hour, it could be an eternity. They don't know. Maybe it was just 5 seconds. They don't know. And I have a similar perception of time. But Oberon in the Iron Druid Chronicles really grounds Atticus, the Iron Druid, the eponymous, the titular Iron Druid, I think is what the official term would be. But Oberon is constantly reminding Atticus to be present in the moment, because Atticus is always worried about, oh, what shit's gonna hit the fan next? Oh, how do I take care of this situation right now? And if I do this right now, then what's going to happen later? And I mean, he's a very long-lived character. But because of that, he tends to not live in the moment. And as a result, Oberon brings him back and gives him a sense of perspective. Now, my dogs that I've had in my adult life, neither of them talk to me the way that Oberon does. They have this like magical mental link where they communicate through that link telepathically, or as my family likes to say, psychopathically. But and I never had that with my dogs, but especially with Kaylin. Every moment was the only moment, and he was actually a service dog, and helped me cope with anxiety, because if I started getting worried or anxious and started panicking, he'd come over. And he'd sit in my lap and he'd start nudging